Good morning, everybody. It's Kevin here again with Father Hayatsu. Father was away last week, and we talked with Kathy, but we've got Father back here today, and we're going to be off next week, though, because you are doing something.
I'll be gone again.
You'll be gone again, and so nothing next week, but we are here today to talk about something that's been in the Catholic world, the Catholic news world. And it all has to do with, why we don't do Mass in Latin anymore, and why you face us, and all the changes that came about with the Mass from the Second Vatican Council. I think probably a lot of people that attend St. Francis either were alive and remember it. My dad certainly does, and I've heard all about it. And I grew up hearing about, Vatican II, and I think I was 13 or 14 when I finally turned to my dad and said, "What in the world are you talking about? What is this all about?" Because a few days ago, the Pope issued some sort of proclamation about the Mass, and so we're here to ask Father the questions of why do we do Mass in English, and why do you face us, and all the changes with the Mass.
Well, certainly we are doing Mass in English in the vernacular for every country, because people, for the most part, don't know Latin. They don't take Latin in school anymore. When I was in high school, I took Latin for 4 years. But then I went to the seminary and found out I really didn't know Latin after taking O'Day Latin, because they had a much more higher version of that kind of thing. So, most people had a missal written in their own language, English missal, to follow the Mass, because they didn't understand what the priest was saying up there. And in the old days, the priest was facing the wall, the tabernacle, which was in front of him, rather than facing the people, because it's kind of like a private thing almost. That I'm doing these prayers in a language that nobody understands me, and I'm not even looking at people in their face, except when I read the scriptures. They were in Latin as well. The homily was in English, but it wasn't a homily. It was a set kind of schedule that the archdiocese gave out. So one year you do the sacraments, another year you do the commandments, another year you do the creed. And there was nothing, they didn't follow the scriptures at all. They just preached on these topics on the schedule throughout the year. Well, when I was in the seminary when they changed to the vernacular, to the English. And I remember as priests, before we were ordained, we had to do a Mass test to see if we can do the Mass. And I can remember classmates of mine who skipped class because they had to do their Mass test at the next period or something, and they're up there in a room practicing how to do the Mass in half English and half Latin and do all the parts right. Well, even as a person who took 4 years of Latin in high school and then took Latin all through the seminary, and our textbooks were in Latin, philosophy and theology textbooks were in Latin. One year that Rome decided that every seminarian in every seminary must do part of their exams in Latin. Well, and we had to have the question in Latin, the answer was in Latin, and then we could have other English questions as well. But that lasted for about a half a year or so, and they quit because nobody was getting it. There are some people there, certainly. In Rome, they still teach in Latin in their seminaries for the most part. And so the guys learn Latin. They're smart guys, they go there anyway. And so the regular guys, we're up here struggling with all these other things. We had a French teacher in the seminary who, for our test, was to take a walk with him, and he would speak in French, and we'd have to answer in French. That was our exam. And so we were talking about green beans, and I don't know what else we're talking about. He was trying to make it as simple as possible. But even that, after 1 year of French, you're trying to speak French, except for a few words. I thought I was smart enough to go to Paris and ask the waiter in French something. He started blah, 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 in French. I had no idea what he was trying to say. He was shaming me for trying to attempt to be kind, or So
Do you speak French now?
no. So language is an important way of communicating, of course, and for people to go to church and hear a foreign language and not know exactly what the priest is saying is a difficult way to get involved in what Mass is all about, or praying, in a foreign language like that. Now, people who love the church's Latin Masses, I think go there mostly because of the reverence that's there, the quietness, the fact that they can follow in a book. Now, some people say they understand Latin. I don't know if they really do, but I don't think a lot of people that go there really understand Latin. They're there because of the tradition. They're there because of the quiet and the respectfulness that might be there from of old. But the reason why the Pope has come down on that is that he sees that part of the church drifting away from the church. They're going back into another church that was pre-Vatican II and not adhering to the mandates of Vatican II, what we're supposed to be and try to do as Catholics. And that's where the vernacular, the English and the native language came into being. As a seminarian, just being ordained, we rejoiced as future priests that we were going to do it in English, because it just made sense that you're facing the people, you're talking to the people, the prayers can be understood by everybody. Not everybody looking at their book to see what the priest is saying up there, because there was no communication. It was like they're up there and we were out here, and they ring a bell and we wake up and it's the consecration. In fact, in the early church before Vatican I even, the church's Mass had a curtain between the altar and the people. And the only way that people knew what was going on the other side of the curtain was they rang bells to warn them that the consecration is coming up. And so that whole thing, it was just a disconnect somehow or other, that priests up there saying Mass for the people, but the people out here don't know what's going on up there behind the curtain, or because it's a different language that they're used to.
Right.
So Mass, Vatican II, was for the people and helping the people to understand what was going on and how to get involved, because we're supposed to be involved in the action of the Mass and praying with the priest and with each other. But when you don't know the language you're speaking, it's hard to get involved in that way. So people would say the Rosary during Mass, for example. They didn't follow the Mass. They're saying the Rosary. They're, reading spiritual books or whatever, because that was going on up there, and I can only understand the Rosary or whatever prayers I was saying privately during that time. So it was a whole different conversation. So the Pope is trying to bring people back to being church, to being one people of God, and not to have this division that exists between people who think that this modern church is not for them and go back to something else that I used to know. So it's dividing, it has divided the church. And so there are people who have left the church because of that. There are people who only go to the Latin Mass. And, for some, it may be a spiritual experience in a lot of different ways maybe, but there's no connect necessarily with the Pope or with the church at large. So there's a lot of things that the Pope is trying to correct with his saying that the Latin Mass is only going to be done with the approval of a local bishop, because they have a local circumstance that says these people want or need this particular thing, but they have to still be connected to the Roman Catholic Church of the world, and not just their own little idea of what church is for them.
And I'm sure priests in Africa, in South America, and East Asia are happy they get to do it get to do the Mass in their local dialect too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Right?
Yes.
They can bring Latin to the Philippines.
Or yeah, well, it's interesting. The African priests that have come here to our diocese, I used to help work with them, and I've asked, how many languages do you speak? So they spoke their tribal language, which may be one or two different languages. They spoke their national country language, which is French or English. And then if they went to school in Rome, they learned Italian, and then if they went to Germany, they learned German. So all of these priests from Africa knew at least 3 or 4 or 5 different languages.
Pretty amazing.
Amazing, yes.
It's incredible.
And here's American priest. No, what language you speak? English.
There
I am, an American. I'm an American priest. So,
like Cardinal Sarah. Cardinal Sarah, I think, speaks 8 languages. And he's from, I can't remember right now, McMauley, I think, somewhere in West Africa.
Oh, yeah.
And he's written a couple books, and great books, but Cardinal Sarah's, like 8 languages. I think Pope Benedict XVI spoke like 12 languages or something crazy like that.
Yeah. So there are people who can do that.
Yeah, amazing.
But
Well, all right. That's good to know.
All right. So come to church. We have it in English here, St. Francis.
Go learn Latin too. Why not? So that you can read all the ancient texts. All right. Thanks, everybody.